Republican leaders are going to be traveling the country. House Majority Leader Eric Cantor, as Joel Pollack reports in Breitbart, is going to lead a tour of House leaders next week aimed at educating Americans, all of us, about the history and importance of immigration to the United States. And this tour is dubbed the Become America Tour. I think I'm going to become nauseous tour is a better term. And the lawmakers will attend events at Ellis Island, at the Museum of Jewish Heritage, and the African Burial Ground National Monument, according to an itinerary of the trip. Politico reported earlier in the week. Leaders will speak at a naturalization ceremony, and the group will also have a breakfast meeting at Gracie Mansion with the schmuck there, the mayor. In 2009, Cantor led a listening tour. Now he's leading a lecturing tour. And the tour is being coordinated by the nonprofit Faith and Politics Institute and include members of both parties, such as the radical leftist Representative Luis Gutierrez, who apparently is every Republican leader's friend now, who advocates amnesty for illegal aliens. In April, Gutierrez told a wealthy audience in Chicago that they owed it to the people who wash the dishes and take care of your kids and mow your lawn to support a path to U.S. citizenship for illegal aliens. So it's the Become America tour, where they're going to be lecturing us. You know, in June, only 6% of Americans said that immigration was the most important issue facing the country, up from 4% in April, despite the nonstop media blitz. The economy, unemployment, dissatisfaction with government, health care, the federal debt, family, moral decline, they were all listed higher than immigration. No congressional tours have been planned to address those issues. Now, when Cantor's on his tour with Gutierrez and the rest of them, what exactly are they going to tell us? I bet you they don't tell us what M. Stanton Evans tells us in Investors Business Daily. It's a stunning column by M. Stanton Evans in Investors Business Daily, who's now taken this immigration bill, 1,100 pages, and broken it into its many pieces. Do you want to know some of what's actually in this immigration bill that over a dozen Republicans voted for? That's being pushed in parts and pieces by John Boehner? Well, I think you need to know. As Evans says, the purpose of the bill passed by the Senate, pending in the House, is to provide a path to citizenship for illegal immigrants in exchange for supposedly tough new enforcement measures that would prevent other such incursions in the future. But buried deep within this immigration bill are hidden multi-million-dollar slush funds for left-wing nonprofit groups to provide services to the estimated 11 million illegals now in the U.S. And once enacted, the slush funds would total almost $300 million over 3 years, and over time, that slush fund grows even larger. He says, reviewing the massive legislation, it's obvious that the lawyering would be needed. 1,100-page proposal is a network of legal requirements and protections, waivers and exceptions, including a new provisional immigrant or blue card status, the first phase of legalization for illegals, appeals of adverse rulings, stays of deportation, applications for work visas, and countless other such guarantees. So this bill, ladies and gentlemen, is nothing like it's been sold to you, and it confers all these rights and due processes and administrative hearings on illegal aliens. And within the thicket of new rights are features that would vastly increase the flow of immigrants to perhaps 30 or 40 million over the next 10 years. One is a set of chain immigration clauses legalizing the spouses and children of illegal aliens. Another is the DREAM Act, fast-tracking legal status for aliens of any age who came here before they were 16. That's the point. It's not about children who are here now necessarily. It's about people who came here as children before they were 16. And how would this be proved? We really don't know. M. Stanton Evans goes on. A third is a blue card, temporary visa that could be converted to permanent status and used by future illegals to get legal in a hurry. And, of course, a Spanish-speaking immigrant would likely know nothing of this maze of loopholes, benefits, and protections, and would on his own be unable to exploit them. So the bill actually sets up a fund of $50 million to aid illegal aliens seeking provisional status, filing appeals, blocking efforts at deportation, obtaining naturalization, and so on. So you, the American taxpayer, are going to be paying for all of this. You're going to be subsidizing the left-wing groups and the left-wing lawyers who are going to make a fortune out of this. The groups receiving the $50 million to give such assistance would be nonprofit, quote, immigrant serving organizations whose staffs have demonstrated qualifications, experience, and expertise in providing quality services to immigrants, unquote. Agents of such groups would be paid by the government to guide the illegals through the intricate processes in the legislation. Eric Cantor won't tell you this on his America tour next week. The bill provides a sizable slush fund for leftward groups in the immigrant serving advocacy and lobbying business. As John Cornyn of Texas put it, the bill is chock full of de facto earmarks, pork barrel spending, and special interest sweeteners. Though the nonprofit agencies getting the money aren't named in the bill, their identities can be deduced from the history and politics of the issue. Foremost among the groups, the National Council of La Raza, meaning the race, or alternatively the people in English, a group that opposes current U.S. immigration laws, defends illegal aliens, and long promoted amnesty measures. It's also an organization with significant leverage at the Obama White House, and its former senior executive helped draft the Senate bill. La Raza is already a recipient of federal grants and contracts running at $8 million to $10 million per year, and would arguably be at the head of the line to receive new funding. A second group, the Mexican-American Legal Defense and Education Fund, says it receives no federal money, but would likely qualify for subsidies under this new law. Now, what are the services to be provided by such groups? The legislation lists them. Supplying information to illegals and the public on the eligibility and benefits of registered provisional immigrant status, completing application forms and petitions for immigrants, obtaining documents and other relevant data, applying for any waivers from restrictions on illegals and qualifying family members, helping individuals seeking to adjust their status to permanent residence, applying for United States citizenship, and on, and on, and on. You know who wrote this? These ethnic groups wrote this, not the Gang of Eight. Among the features of the bill in terms of immigration enforcement are provisos concerning drunken driving in the U.S. Listen to this. 2 prior convictions for drunk driving would not disqualify an immigrant from legalization, but a third offense after the bill is passed may disqualify an immigrant from becoming a citizen. So they're not even deported. Similar rules apply to counterfeiting or altering passports. 3 such instances are forbidden, meaning 2 are permitted. As to selling or forging materials used in making passports, the bill says 10 such instances are verboten. That 9 won't be a problem. I'm stunned. Another provision would protect aliens who've been ordered excluded, deported, or removed from the country. Such aliens under the bill may apply for registered provisional status, and by this one step, avoid removal. In Investor's Business Daily, because this is a public service, this column that he wrote. So another provision of this comprehensive immigration bill would protect aliens who've been ordered excluded, deported, or removed from the country. Such aliens under the bill may apply for registered provisional status, and by this one step, avoid removal. So they've already gone through the administrative due process system, have been adjudicated guilty, have been ordered to leave, and now that's all wiped clean. Pending approval of their applications, the aliens shall not be considered unlawfully present unless the Secretary of Homeland Security personally intervenes to order their removal. Now that's not going to happen. The Secretary or an immigration judge could stop deportation of illegals on humanitarian or family unity grounds or simply in the public interest if they decide to do so. Public interest is essentially undefined in the legislation. Boy. You know, the more we look under the rocks in Washington, D.C., the more scuzz there is. These open-ended waivers could all but ensure mass litigation and the end of immigration enforcement, as Jeff Sessions has said. Other parts of the bill go beyond amnesty and waivers to guarantee sanctuary and safe havens for illegal immigrants. The sanctuary part of the bill, Section 3721, says immigration officers may not, listen to this, may not conduct enforcement actions at sensitive locations, except in the emergency circumstances or with written advance permission from higher level officials. These no enforcement zones. So within the federal law, they built sanctuary areas, no enforcement zones. They include hospitals, health clinics, schools, like vocational schools, universities, and others are included. Organizations that help children, pregnant women, or people with disabilities, churches, synagogues, mosques, any other quote-unquote sensitive location later designated by the federal bureaucracy. How many times have McCain and Lindsey Graham said the border's going to look like the Berlin Wall? Well, all the enforcement. There's no enforcement. The legal process is going to be stacked. And then we're paying the lawyers to fight every step of the way under the law that creates all these waivers and loopholes. Now, for illegal aliens who actually manage to get arrested, there are provisions like Section 3715 to secure their release. Detainees who cannot get a bond can be turned over to secure alternative providers until they get a hearing. Now, these secure alternatives turn out to be, once more, non-governmental, community-based organizations that would provide community-based supervision programs for detainees. In other words, groups like La Raza. Another set of grants will go to eligible organizations that provide assistance to illegals seeking blue cards and provisional status, collecting proof of eligibility and giving such assistance. There's more, and I want you to hear all of this, because if I don't tell you, you're not going to hear about it. Thanks to our friends at Investors Business Daily, one of the finest editorial pages in America, and M. Stanton Evans, one of the great conservative icons of our time. I want you to hear the rest of this. Now let me finish up with this M. Stanton Evans piece in Investors Business Daily, the real comprehensive immigration reform law, and I'm probably revealing information to you that you've never heard before because I never heard it either. No, we're just supposed to support it, you know. One section of this law that was passed by the Senate, it's a bill actually, creates a new immigrant council. Now this is like Soviet stuff, including representatives of nonprofits, quote, with legal and advocacy experience. All these left-wing groups, they're subsidized, they're given power conferred by the government with legal and, you know what? I am prepared to debate any Republican who voted for this, any Republican who advocates for this, whether they write on the blog, whether they write in a newspaper, whether they're on cable or radio. I am prepared to debate this law with any of them. I will debate this law with John McCain, with Lindsey Graham, with Jeff Flake, with Marco Rubio. I will debate this law with Paul Ryan. I will debate this with Jeb Bush, the whole Bush family, with Karl Rove, my buddy Pete Wehner. Let's go. Come on the air. You want to debate this law and the specifics? Let's debate it. But I'm not going to allow you to have your generalizations and so forth about the greatness of immigration. We know that. We don't need lectures about that. We're not children. Let's get into the particulars of this law, the technical points of this law, and let's have at it. Any of you. Come on. I'll take on 3 at a time. You sit there and you pontificate and you put down and you lecture. Come on, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's have the debate. I'm calling you all out. So we have a new immigrant council, and it includes representatives of nonprofits, quote, with legal and advocacy experience working with immigrant communities to introduce and integrate new immigrants into the state. The bill authorizes an additional $100 million to $20 million a year for 5 years. That's $20 million a year for 5 years to finance these efforts. So a second slush fund is created. Then there's a third slush fund. A third grant program appears in a later section funding an outreach campaign to inform immigrants and the public about employee rights, responsibilities, and remedies in the legislation. This recruitment project, too, would be contracted to nonprofits at a cost of $120 million. That's $40 million a year over 3 years. So while the Senate bill is advertised as a tough conservative measure, the largely unnoticed sanctuary funding and La Raza clauses may be the real point of the legislation. This seems likely since the bill was steered through the Senate by the Obama White House. And overseeing a team of executive branch bill drafters ensconced in the Dirksen Senate office building, guiding the legislative process with Obama's very own Director of Domestic Policy, Cecilia Munoz, the leading presidential staffer on immigration issues. Now, who is she? Who was the point person for Obama? The real person crafting this legislation? Well, let me tell you about Ms. Munoz. Before assuming her job with the White House, she was a senior policy analyst at La Raza. So a former La Raza official has been pushing through legislation that advances the La Raza program and could potentially fill its coffers. And this connection becomes even more eye-catching, says Stan Evans, when we note that La Raza and Munoz were also involved in the last big amnesty go-round in 1986, which supposedly traded legalization of illegals, then about $3 million, for tougher new enforcement. In that case, the legislation happened, but the enforcement didn't. That is the legalization. La Raza and similar groups lobbied for greater leniency toward illegals and against the employer's sanctions that were the law's main enforcement mechanism. So in other words, after getting the law passed in 1986, they then lobbied against, fought against the enforcement provisions. In 1990, Munoz wrote a long La Raza essay saying legalization was good and should be expanded, but that sanctions against hiring illegals were discriminatory and should be abandoned. And she said further that groups like La Raza were unfairly burdened in providing costly legal services to immigrants, a problem that could obviously be solved by these slush funds in the Senate measure. She called her 1990 essay unfinished business. Looks as though the current bill completes that business La Raza launched back in the 1980s. So now we have a better grasp on what this is, on all the crimes that have been committed where immunity will be granted, all the people ordered deported by administrative law judges who will have their records cleared, the massive slush funds, the provisional status, the filing appeals, the blocking efforts at deportation, and on and on and on. The enormous power that bureaucrats have within the federal government. I am prepared to debate this with anybody. And there's a lot more, by the way. So the Republicans who endorse this like to talk in flowery terms. They want to go to Ellis Island. They want to go to other places and talk about America as an immigration nation. Ladies and gentlemen, every country is an immigration nation. Every single one. That's not even the point. The point is this law. What is this law? What does it do? We are right to reject this, and we are right to condemn those who continue to push it as more and more facts about it come out. This Gang of Eight didn't write this bill. Some staffers wrote this bill, and the lead author is a former senior official with La Raza. Folks, this isn't how a country should be managed. This isn't how immigration should be handled. There's a complete disconnect between the propaganda that we hear from the likes of Jeb Bush and others and what this bill is all about. Why should people with 2 drunk driving charges, convictions actually, be given a pass as if they never had a drunk driving charge? Does that happen in America? With American citizens, I should say? No, it doesn't. How about all these other crimes where all of a sudden records are expunged? And why are we subsidizing all these left-wing groups with tens of millions of dollars? Why are there sanctuary areas created under this federal statute for so many locations and areas that it becomes a joke? All the waivers, all the gaps that are created will result in mass litigation and completely undermine internal enforcement of the very law that they say this is a stricter law than ever before. And all of this kicks in immediately before the border is secured. And now the House of Representatives is falling all over itself under the lack of leadership of the Speaker of the House, the spineless of the House, I should call him from now on, Mr. Producer. The spineless of the House, Johnny Boehner, who says children who came here because of no fault of their own, well, they should get citizenship. And so does Eric Cantor. And what you now have learned is that we're not just talking about individuals who are children today. We're talking about adults who were brought here as children, who could be well into their 30s, maybe their 40s. They also qualify. There's so much here that's so disgusting. The destruction of a real due process system, all these loopholes built into the system. In other words, the fix is in. And all the lawyers on the left and all the lawyers for the White House, they got together and they cobbled this. And who was the lead Republican on the Gang of Eight? The lead Republican, John McCain, who, despite his hero status in the Vietnam War And God knows he was a hero and a brave man. As a politician, he has to be one of the dumbest in history. It's a sad thing. And he's everywhere, negotiating all over the place, selling out left and right, cutting deals left and right, on TV all over the place. It's almost bizarre watching this guy. CNSNews.com, Senator John McCain, a member of the Gang of Eight that helped write and pass the immigration reform bill in that chamber, said he did not know how many passports a person could forge under the proposed law before being charged with a crime. On Capitol Hill on Wednesday, CNSNews.com asked McCain, Senator McCain, can I ask you a question about the Senate immigration bill? Under the bill, how many passports can someone forge before it becomes a crime? McCain said, you're going to have to ask our folks that. I don't think that we stand for any forgeries. The CNS News follow-up. Can you tell me why that would be part of the bill in the first place? McCain, I cannot tell you that is part of the bill. Well, it is part of the bill, you dimwit. In the legislation that passed in the Senate, Section 1541, trafficking in passports, it states, any person who, during any period of 3 years or less, knowingly, number one, and without lawful authority produces, issue, or transfers 3 or more passports, number two, forges, counterfeits, alters, or falsely makes 3 or more passports, number three, secures, possesses, uses, receives, buys, sells, or distributes 3 or more passports, knowing them to be forged, counterfeited, or altered, or 4, completes, mails, prepares, presents, signs, or submits 3 or more applications for U.S. passports, knowing them to be materially false, shall be fined under this title, imprisoned not more than 20 years. So in other words, ladies and gentlemen, if it's less than 3 times, you're in the clear. Did you know that, Senator McCain? No, you don't have the foggiest idea. I will debate you anytime, any place on your own bill.